And hello and welcome to the first ever interview on the brand new Community of One podcast. This is the place where you're going to find all the interviews now, a part of the Kent Holstey podcast network of channels. Today I got an incredible first interview for the podcast, and I got to tell you what, I was on my social media and I was kind of just looking around, and then all of a sudden I see a former classmate from high school, and she was talking about her work that she's doing, and I thought it was an incredible thing to bring up and talk about, because as we were just talking about before coming on here, you know, the issue with today is a lot of people do not feel comfortable talking about their problems, their situations, their struggles that they're going through in life. And I think a lot of the biggest issues is self-confidence, and then also the major one is anxiety.
Yeah.
Anxiety is one that I have always had it, but 5 years ago things changed in my life where it became 10 times worse, and it became high anxiety, which we'll get into that a little bit later. But joining us today is Kathryn. Is it Barrow?
Barrow. Yep.
Barrow
with a B.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Perfect. Name change since high school. That's all right. Congratulations. Yep. But
Thank you.
But yeah, let's talk about what you do and what you're promoting and what your line of work is, because it's pretty impressive. I have so much appreciation for people who take time out of their life to help other people's life. So what do you do, and how does it benefit other people today?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for having me on. I'm super excited about this opportunity. So I am a solopreneur of two businesses. I just created a second business because my first one was limiting me a little bit in the amount of people that I could reach and work with, because, you know, logistically speaking, with my license as a licensed clinical social worker, I'm kind of restrained to the state of Montana. Mm-hmm. So I'm a mental health therapist, LCSW, licensed clinical social worker, and I've been working in the mental health industry for over 7 years. Initially, I was working with children and families that are at high risk. A lot of those were within the foster care system. Worked at a local school called Crossroads for kids who couldn't maintain in mainstream schools. So all the kids had IEPs, and that was a really amazing learning opportunity, and kind of went through a couple of different agencies, and eventually made my way back to the hospital where I had previously worked as a CNA for 8 years before I obtained my my master's degree in social work. So I went back and was working at the school as the school CSCT therapist with the kids there. And I just really was feeling like I wanted to do more. And again, kind of restricted with not only, you know, financial needs with working within an agency, but there's such a high expectation to see so many people. Like, it's all about money with them, with agencies just in general. And I just felt like I was being stretched really thin, and I couldn't show up authentically for myself and my family and my clients because I was stretched so thin and wasn't being compensated appropriately for that either. So I decided to open up my own private practice, and for a short period of time, I worked both at a school and in private practice until my private practice really blew up and I could no longer work a full-time job and a part-time job. So I unfortunately, but fortunately, terminated my employment at the school that I was currently working at and transitioned into private practice full-time. And throughout that time period, I feel like I've just really focused on kind of just supporting like where I saw the need was until I really found my own special niche And for me, that's been anxiety. So, and that's something that I've personally struggled with and always been super intrigued when it comes to mental health. And so this was right up my alley. So I did some specific trainings in regards to anxiety and kind of looking at some different modalities after working in traditional therapy for so long. I'm not knocking it. It's amazing. I love therapy. But there are alternative interventions that do prove to be more successful and in such a shorter amount of time. And so I kind of took the high road and decided to kind of mold my private practice into what I felt like was really meeting the need and helping people and getting them in and out quickly so that they weren't dependent on seeing a mental health provider for a long period of time, which is kind of the standard, right? Like if we go to therapy, usually if you're in it for the long haul, you can see a therapist for years. And which is kind of silly to me, because if you go to see a therapist, it should be a long-term relationship, but not one that you are actively in, like pursuing weekly for years and years, right? Like if your therapist is really doing what I feel like they ethically should be doing, then there should be a period of time where you're doing the work and then you're going out on your own and you're utilizing those tools and the growth that you've had during those treatment sessions, and then kind of coming back for maintenance sessions as you need it. As crap comes up in your life and there's stuff to process, then you just come back for maintenance sessions because that's just how life rolls. So I guess that's kind of like my career in a nutshell, so to speak. And I spoke to the therapy component, but also, I mentioned this second business, which is a coaching business. So I'm utilizing that coaching business to do, I would say, probably 90% of the same work that I'm doing with my therapy clients. But I'm just doing it on a different scale, and I'm doing it all virtually, where there's a learning platform with education modules and group coaching calls and things like that. So there's it's therapeutic coaching per se. And I've kind of termed myself as a core belief coach, because core beliefs are kind of the root underneath anxiety. And I really feel strongly that unless or until we're able to really uncover and reprogram our core fears and our core beliefs, that anxiety still can play a pretty dominant role in our life and our functioning. So that's kind of where I land and focus on, is core beliefs and core fears and anxiety and trauma. Those are my jam.
All right. And it's all pretty exciting stuff to me, because I think anxiety is one of the biggest mysteries to me that I really want to understand. And that's why I wanted to chat with you, is because, when we hear the word anxiety, where does anxiety stem from? Is it something that's genetic, that we inherit from something that unfortunately happened through bloodline? Or is it just something strictly because of something traumatic that has happened in our life, where it just eats and it kind of grows into something bigger and bigger until you really hit rock bottom?
Yeah.
And you realize, oh shoot, I got to do something here, know?
Yeah. And that's a great question. I think a lot of people wonder that as well, and are very alone and just feeling very isolated in the symptoms that they're experiencing, and really not understanding where those things are coming from or how they're manifesting. So when it comes to anxiety, it can really, it doesn't discriminate. It can be, anybody can have anxiety regardless of age, color, culture, spiritual beliefs, any of that. But what we're looking at is that there are genetics that can be passed down. So if there's, family members upstream in the family tree that suffer from anxiety, we know that genetically speaking, you are predispositioned or more likely to be predispositioned to anxiety symptoms. And if I'm remembering the statistics correctly, it's roughly 30 to 40% of individuals who suffer from anxiety. It's genetic, right? So we're seeing that genetic connection. And then there's things such as environmental factors, so pollutions or things like that, nature, things that you're just experiencing in life. There's also things such as like trauma that you've experienced or certain experiences. So if you were witness to or a victim of abuse, a lot of times those experiences cause anxiety, like primal anxiety responses in our brain, which only are exacerbated depending on the behavioral response that we have to the anxiety that we're feeling or experiencing. And then a couple other things that can really, I guess, be the source of anxiety. We look at like medications or the lack thereof, just medical conditions, substances, marijuana, unfortunately, I guess, depending on how you're looking at it, can be a huge source of anxiety where a lot of people, don't necessarily suffer with a tremendous amount of anxiety. And then after using marijuana, they have this crazy heightened response because it feels so like their brain just isn't connecting that it's a safe thing to be in that state of mind. So there's a lot of different factors that really play into, how or where anxiety stems from.
The one question I had while you were talking there is that popped up is, are men more subject to it compared to females, or is it pretty much all the same?
That's a good question. And I want to say I for sure know the answer to that, but I can't say without a doubt 100%. But I do believe that females are do rank higher than males, typically speaking, but I wouldn't be able to tell you for certain. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay. That's
yeah.
a fair response.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would think it would be the same thing, but
Yeah.
the reason why I ask is because I think, like we were talking about before coming on here, I made the comment that it seems like guys are more, keep it to myself.
Right.
I don't need anybody. Whereas, females are more open. They're more willing to express how they feel. And that's not saying any of those are bad things. It's just how life is. Women are more vulnerable to things to feel like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. There's guys out there that are very tough, that are raised to be, when I was a kid, the joke was with my brother, be tough.
Yeah.
That's what guys are raised to be. We're supposed to be the strong ones. We're supposed to be the ones that, everything is going to be okay.
Right.
That's what we do because that's training for being a good husband. Everything's going to be okay, hon.
Yeah.
That's
right.
it. That's how it is. But that doesn't mean that guys deep down inside don't feel that, and they need to express it, because that was my biggest problem, is I tried to hide all my feelings and my emotions, because for the longest time I felt like I was being shut down, that no one cared about how I felt. I was being told no one cared how I felt. No one would want to care. No one would want to listen, that they felt bad for me, all those little things. So once that gets into your head, it's kind of like what I was going into with the guy thing. It's ingrained. It's how you're trained to think. But also it's funny when people go through mental abuse and they're being told that stuff that I was being told, that no one cares, no one wants to hear you or understand you, no one will miss you or whatever. That's all stuff that adds to that pile of anxiety, because people hear that, they're like, well, oh crap, well, if no one cares about me, is that why no one asks about why I'm
Right.
acting different. Is that why no one calls to check up on me to see how I am? I mean, the biggest problem, and granted, I love social media. I think the biggest problem today, why we're seeing it more and more, is because of social media. So basically, how can we get a hold of you? If someone sees this video and they're in the Flathead Valley and they want some help from you, some advice,
Yeah.
how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So you can find me on social media, Instagram and Facebook at Katj Barrow. That's B as in boy, ARROW. Or you can email me at guided.alignment.coaching@gmail.com. I'm currently working on figuring out what domain I want to use for my new website. So I'm not sharing that just yet because I haven't figured it out 100%. But you can always DM me on social media. There's also a lot of resources that I've been posting on social media. And, I know you mentioned in the beginning that right now, especially with my coaching business, at least, I'm kind of focusing more on females who struggle with anxiety. However, a lot of the content on my social media is just generalized that, anybody can utilize. And I've just created, I haven't 100% finished it, almost done, with just an anxiety 101 course. So just a pretty inexpensive resource to just really understand anxiety, the cycle of anxiety, what it looks like, understanding your responses, and kind of some different tools to help with better management of anxiety symptoms. Because we don't want to get rid of anxiety. It's a primal instinct. It's something that we need to stay safe and alive, right? So the idea is to just really understand it, educate yourself on it, be more aware of what the symptoms are, how your body's responding and how you're behaviorally responding, and whether or not those behaviors are if they're reinforcing your brain's automatic response in those triggering or upsetting situations that are causing the anxiety. So some really great resources to check out, and anybody can message me on there for additional support.
If there's one person that is watching this right now and they're really struggling with anxiety, to end the show today, what would you give for advice for someone dealing with anxiety? But before you give that answer, I just want to thank all of you guys for watching the Kent Holste podcast of the Community of One. If you like this video, share it, like it, subscribe, but also make sure you do the same for her because she deserves it. And then also, if you see someone who served our country, whether it be police, military, fire, or even the hard people that work in our medical facilities, give them a fist bump, give them an elbow, give them a high five. Tell them how much you appreciate them. You never know how much they might appreciate that one random act of kindness. And as always, remember to think and be positive, do what you can, not what you can't. And I believe in you. Don't you think you should too? Hit it with your final question.
So I suppose, when it comes to anxiety, my biggest advice would be to not resist the anxiety. Really pay attention to, what is the intent or the function behind your behavioral response. And what we resist will persist is a pretty common theme when it comes to anxiety and anxiety management. So we have to experience the anxiety. We have to feel it. We have to retrain our brain. And so if we avoid and we engage in these self-sabotaging behaviors, then we're only reinforcing it. We have to talk about it. We have to experience anxiety and allow our brain to reprogram and learn something new, learn that we're not actually in danger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Got to open up those blinds. Stop thinking
Absolutely.
that people are watching you and going to attack you. No one's going to do that. So
yeah,
just
absolutely.
Be happy. Know that there's people who care. And if you are struggling with something very, very difficult and you do need help, call someone so you can get the help you need. Don't be afraid. There's people that are like her that care for you and want to be there for you, not because
Absolutely.
they're obligated.
Yes.
Because they truly care, and take advantage of that today. So thank you so much for your time. I'm so glad I got to talk to you, and congratulations on your success. And I really hope within this new venture of what you're doing with this really grows and flourishes within the Valley, because God knows the Flathead needs it. And
Yes.
we need that positivity. We need that encouragement. So just like what I said for the podcast, let's be a community. Let's join each other together as one and make this world a better place. Thank you for watching.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.